What's up? I'm Troubleshoot. Welcome back to another video. If you're someone who creates images using Stable Diffusion, using Automatic 1111, Vlad's SD Next, or anything like that, you're probably wasting many gigabytes of drive space when you could be saving a ton of it with just one simple change. And you can even do it retroactively. What am I speaking about? Well, let's have a look at my output files. First, I'll start by firing up Automatic 1111. Then once it's done, in the web UI, I'll head across to Settings at the very top, and on the far left, Saving Images/Grids. In here, if you see Always Save All Generated Images is enabled, which is something I have enabled, then you're going to be saving all of the images you generate, regardless of whether you choose to save them or not. We'll get back here in just a moment. Looking at the output folder, where I've generated a whole bunch of nature pictures in PNG format, as well as a few other things, all 106 of these pictures are taking up roughly 50 megs. That's not bad until you start extrapolating this over many images generated, especially if you have this Always Save option ticked. It could easily take up many gigabytes, because mine, for example, is taking around 24. That's quite a bit. What we can do is obviously convert these big PNG pictures into something a bit smaller. JPEG, for one, is compressed, Webp, etc. If you didn't know, you can change the output format in Automatic 1111. For example, these 106 PNGs come to about 55 megs. If we instead use JPEG and have a look at these, they take about 7. That's a huge amount of drive space saved with pretty comparable image quality. For example, here's a JPEG on the right, and with the same seed and prompt, on the left is a PNG file. If we were to zoom in on the people down here, for example, you'll see that there's very little difference between these, except for maybe some extra pixelation around the edge here, etc. But for the most part, these images are pretty comparable. PNG does have the edge when it comes to quality, especially around change of colors, etc. But what we can do instead is use Webp. I've downloaded a tool called cwebp, which is Google's Webp converter, and simply by running a command, cwebp, with a quality of 90, pasting the input and labeling the output as Webp. As such, I can simply let it run and it'll convert my image file, saving me a ton of space. So, for example, here's the PNG at 480 kilobytes and the Webp is around 50. If we compare these two and zoom in on the people once more, this time we should see a great improvement in the haze that was around them, which was visible in the JPEG version. So, the JPEG one is around 79 kilobytes and it actually looks worse than the slightly smaller 50 kilobyte Webp. That's actually crazy. That's exactly what we'll be doing here. Obviously, you can go through and convert all of your images to Webp to keep the quality really good and halve your disk space, or even in this case, take it down about 10 times lower while keeping pretty much the original image intact. But the one thing that you lose is quite an important feature. If you were to save things directly from the web UI or have a look at these output folders, what you can do is drag your images back in to the prompt slot here, and it'll read out all of the information from your prompt. You can also do this on the PNG info tab. Just by dragging in files like this, you'll be able to read all about it. Now the thing is that if we convert files using a third-party tool such as cwebp, while it does convert the image and keep the quality high, it loses this metadata information. This can be something that's pretty difficult to get back if you don't know what you're doing. If you're comfortable losing your generation info and other things like that, you can easily convert all of your images using an online Webp converter, or of course Google's cwebp using the same command I just mentioned. But if you're not really worrying about converting your existing stash of images, what you can do is, in Settings, I'd highly recommend changing, on the Saving Images/Grids tab, the file format for images from PNG to Webp as such. The same for grids over here. This way, when you apply settings and reload UI, if we generate a test image as such, then head to the PNG info tab and drag our brand new image in here, you can see all of the information here. So the prompt was test image and we have the rest here. Perfect. This means that if we were to drag the image into here, we'd be able to recreate it in just a moment. If we'd like to fill in the rest of this info, just click this down arrow and it'll automatically choose the correct seed, etc. I'd highly recommend you do this whether or not you actually decide to take action on your previously generated images. This will save you a ton of space in the future for very minimal quality loss. If you ever need to import it into software that doesn't handle WebP, simply use an online tool or a downloadable one to convert it to PNG first. That way you keep the highest quality possible while using the least amount of drive space. But for a moment, let's talk about already existing images. What can we do about these? I'd recommend converting them locally using the cwebp tool I've previously mentioned, but we're about to get pretty nerdy. As the cwebp tool loses a bunch of information, what I'd recommend you do is instead use a script, much like the one I've done here, that will handle files that you drag and drop onto it, and for each file, it'll go ahead and convert the image to WebP, then it'll read the metadata or chunk information and write it to the output WebP file. This allows you to not only keep your generation data, but of course, convert it in a much quicker fashion than typing out the command manually. This does of course rely on a few prerequisites. First of all, you'll need Python installed, which is probably something you already have as you're using Stable Diffusion Web UI. If we type Python space hyphen version, as such, it should tell us I have 3.11. Yours could be 3.9 or anything like that. If for some reason you don't have Python, download Python 3.9 to 3.11 and install it. When you have it installed, make sure you can type Python into a command prompt or PowerShell window and you see a response. Now, all that's left to do is to install the other Python packages that this relies on. So once again, opening up a terminal on Windows 11, otherwise a command prompt window on Windows 10, and either in PowerShell or command prompt, you can type in pip space install space followed by Pillow, which is an image library, which we use to handle PNG images, and I think that's pretty much it. I don't think you need anything else. If you find any errors, try running Python space -m space pip install pillow as such. This will do the same thing, just in different language if your computer gets a bit confused. But we can't convert files just yet. We'll be using cwebp. In the description down below, you'll find a link to Google's cwebp page here, which explains exactly what this does, as well as just before it, a link to download and install WebP. We're looking for cwebp in particular. Simply click Download for Windows over here, save, and open up the zip file. This may look a bit different to you if you've never worked with command line software, as within this folder here, followed by bin, we just have a bunch of exe files. How do we install these? Well, what I'd recommend doing is opening up a file browser, heading to C, and creating yourself a folder such as Tools, Programs, or something like that. Inside of here, simply drag and drop all of these exes out and into this folder. Now, in order to use the command cwebp anywhere on our computer, we need to define where this folder is in our Windows settings. Simply right-click at the very top and choose Copy Address. We'll be using this in our path options. So hit Start and type in path as such. We'll be choosing Edit the System Environment Variables. If you see a window like this, head to the Advanced tab, followed by Environment Variables. Otherwise, if you see a window that looks like this, then you're in the correct place. Look for Path at the very top, select it, and choose Edit. Then, inside of here, click New and paste in the address that we've copied. In my case, C Tools. I already have it here, so I'll be deleting the second entry. Click OK and OK once more. Now, whenever we open up a terminal or command prompt or PowerShell window and type in cwebp, you should see a response. Also, you'll need exiftool, a tool to read and write exif information in order to copy this metadata. In the description down below, you'll find a link to exiftool by Phil Harvey. Simply choose the exiftool download here, which is for Windows, save it, and open the zip when it's done downloading. In here, you'll find just one file, exiftool-k.exe. We'll be extracting this as well to our brand new folder that we added to path, which we called C Tools. I'll simply drag this exiftool-k file into here, and we'll need to rename it, so hit F2 or right-click and choose Rename. Then we'll be essentially just getting rid of the -k and the brackets, so it's just exiftool. Now, if we click at the very top and type in cmd, then hit Enter, we'll be able to run exiftool and see a response. If you see an error like this, it's probably your antivirus looking at things. When that's done, we should be able to run it and see some kind of response. There we go. Obviously, you can run this from anywhere on your system, as we've added C tools to our path, meaning all of these are natively accessible. Now we can start converting and saving tons of space. You'll find a link to this GitHub page in the description down below, which contains this script, and I should be able to update it as I already have. Simply click the download button over here, and you'll be prompted to save it. Just make sure it ends in .py and save as type has .py selected. Otherwise, you can rename it in Windows. So my Python converter file, which is very simple, you just drag files onto it and it'll convert images. You can adjust the quality at the very top by changing 90 to maybe 95, etc. 100 is lossless. If for some reason you're not able to drag files onto a Python file, simply create yourself a batch file, which you'll also find down below, that just has this written in it. Essentially, it'll run Python with whatever file we specify and send all of the files we dragged onto this file to that. It's an extra step, but if for some reason you can't drag onto a Python file, you should be able to drag onto a .bat file. Once again, you'll find both of these down below. Let's start by converting just one image. I'll take this last one and drag it onto the bat file. Just like that, a window will pop up and it'll be converted from almost 800 kilobytes to 66 with, once again, very little quality loss, as you can see. If we try and drag this file into Stable Diffusion, you'll see everything comes back up. We can drop all of the info down and simply generating once more, we should get the same image out. Sweet. Let's try converting all of the files here. So I'll select all of the PNG files and drag them onto our Webp converter. Now it'll run through and hopefully convert all of them. If you see the window appears and vanishes, it probably means there's too many files. So let's instead just do maybe half of these. I'll drag 76 onto here and it'll run through every single one of these one at a time. In a short moment, when this is complete, we can right-click Properties to see our original file size of 76 PNGs. It's around 40 megs. All of our WebP files, however, I'll search for .webp and we should see that 76 of these are around 7 megabytes. So we've done a huge amount for compression. Now, at the time of recording, I'll need to manually delete all of these original PNG files, but when you're seeing it, there'll be something at the top of this, such as delete originals, which will be false by default. Simply change this to true with a capital T, save the file, and when you run it instead, it won't keep any of the PNG files, or it'll move them to a separate folder for deletion. I'll have to see how I do it. Of course, only do that when you trust this conversion, as you'll need to test to see if it works properly for you with the same quality that I'm mentioning. Having a look at these images that have been mass converted, they not only all have the correct exif or metadata, but they also have pretty much exactly the same quality with very little loss. It's a great little tool to have, and it's definitely something I'll be running on my multiple gigabyte collection of AI-generated images. Of course, this was all extra, and to handle images you've already created. If you'd like to just change it for the future, in Settings, Saving Images and Grids, just make sure these are set to WebP, Apply, and Reload UI. Then all future images you generate should be WebP, well compressed, and look just as good. Anyways, that's really it for this quick video. Hopefully you found this useful. Thank you all for watching. My name's been Troubleshoot, and I'll see you all next time. Ciao.